Why is it that anxious and avoidant partners find it so hard to let go of each other? The relationship between avoidant and anxious partners is often one that never truly ends. In one moment, the anxious partner longs for love, closeness and promises of forever, and in the next, the avoidant partner retreats into arguments, distance, silence and painful misunderstandings. These relationships break apart again and again, yet somehow the two always find their way back to each other. Psychologists call this the anxious-avoidant trap. On one side is the anxious partner, constantly seeking love, reassurance and intimacy. On the other side is the avoidant partner, who values freedom, personal space and distance, and who becomes overwhelmed when the relationship grows too close. Together, they create a cycle that is both magnetic and destructive. When the anxious partner feels ignored, they move in close, and when the avoidant partner feels pressured, they withdraw even further. This push and pull doesn't just create conflict, it creates a bond that feels almost addictive. After the pain, the moments of reconciliation feel even sweeter, tricking both partners into repeating the same cycle, again and again. In this video we'll uncover why anxious and avoidant partners find it so hard to split up. We'll explore the hidden psychology, the brain science and the emotional triggers that keep this cycle alive, and most importantly, we'll discover how it's possible to finally break free and build a healthier, more secure kind of love. Brain and psychology explanation. When we try to understand why anxious and avoidant partners remain trapped in each other's web, we first need to look at attachment theory. This theory explains how people experience love and relationships, and what kind of bond they form with others. In simple words, there are three basic styles: secure partners, anxious partners, avoidant partners. Secure partners maintain balance in relationships. They are not afraid of closeness and they also respect freedom. Relationships with them usually remain calm and stable. Anxious partners always want more closeness. They panic quickly if they feel the other person is becoming a little distant. Questions run through their mind. Are they going to leave me? Do they still care about me? This anxiety makes them even more clingy. Avoidant partners value personal space the most. As soon as the relationship becomes too intense, they pull back. They often appear cold or indifferent, but in reality, they see closeness as a threat. Now when an anxious and an avoidant partner come together, the pursuer-distancer cycle begins. The anxious partner always moves forward, and the avoidant partner always steps back. This game is as painful as it is attractive. Here the brain science becomes interesting. When the avoidant pulls back, the anxious partner's body produces more cortisol. This stress hormone speeds up the heartbeat, fills the hands with sweat, and sends danger signals to the brain. The anxious partner feels as if their world is collapsing. But as soon as the avoidant returns, the brain releases another chemical, dopamine. This is the same substance that gives pleasure in addiction or in winning. The relief and comfort the anxious partner feels is so intense that the brain remembers it and wants to repeat it again and again. That is why this relationship begins to feel like an addiction. This is not just a game of hormones, but a form of conditioning. The brain always feels reward more strongly after pain. The greater the pain of breakup, the sweeter the joy of reunion feels, almost like a drug. This is why, even though the relationship is logically painful, it feels emotionally irresistible. Another aspect is the fear paradox. The anxious partner's greatest fear is being left alone, and the avoidant partner's greatest fear is losing freedom. The strange thing is that during a breakup, both of these fears are triggered at the same time. The anxious partner says, "I will be left alone," and the avoidant partner says, "I have truly lost everything." This mutual fear pulls them back towards each other. That is why this dynamic is not only emotional but also biological. It is not merely a matter of choice, but part of the brain's inner system, which pushes them back into the same cycle again and again. Why it's hard to split. But when we ask why it's so difficult for anxious and avoidant partners to walk away, the answer doesn't lie in one simple reason. It's a mix of emotions, habits, fears, and even the way our daily lives become intertwined with another person. One of the biggest factors is emotional investment. After spending months or even years together, both partners have shared memories, routines, and hopes. Even if the relationship feels toxic, the mind struggles with the thought of starting over. People often think, what if I never find someone else? What if this is the best I can get? That uncertainty keeps them stuck. Another reason is the comfort of familiarity. Human beings are wired to find safety in what they already know, even if it's painful. The drama, the fights, the makeups, it all becomes a kind of rhythm. Breaking free means stepping into the unknown, and for most people the unknown feels scarier than repeating the same cycle. Then comes the illusion of change. After every big argument or near breakup, the avoidant partner suddenly shows warmth, while the anxious partner becomes calm for a while. Both believe, this time things will be different. Those brief good phases create hope, even though the cycle eventually repeats. There's also the role of social pressure. Friends, family, or even society at large often push the idea that leaving a relationship is a failure. Many people stay not because they're happy, but because they don't want to feel judged or alone. On a deeper level, it's the fear of loss. For the anxious partner, the idea of being abandoned feels unbearable. For the avoidant partner, the idea of total separation suddenly triggers panic, because even though they fear closeness, they also fear being left behind completely. This creates a strange paradox where both feel trapped, but also terrified of letting go. And let's not forget the addictive highs and lows. After every fight, the reunion feels sweeter, and that relief convinces them the love is worth it. In reality, it's not love alone, it's the nervous system rewarding survival after stress. It feels real, but it's more of a chemical trap than a healthy connection. Lastly, there is the hope of fixing what's broken. Most people don't want to accept that someone they loved deeply may never change. They keep trying, keep waiting, and keep believing that one day things will stabilize. That hope, although beautiful, often becomes the chain that keeps them tied to a relationship that exhausts them. So it's not just about love or attraction, it's about fear, habit, comfort, and the deep human struggle with uncertainty. That's why walking away feels less like a choice and more like climbing a mountain with emotions pulling you back down every time you try to rise. How it feels from inside. When someone is trapped in the anxious, avoidant cycle, outsiders often see it as just an on and off relationship. But from the inside, the story feels completely different. It's an emotional roller coaster that directly impacts a person's mental and physical health. The anxious partner often lives in constant worry. When a phone notification buzzes, their heartbeat races. Is this their message, or are they ignoring me again? At night, their mind is filled with questions. Do they really care? Am I being too demanding? The result is sleepless nights, a restless mind always on alert, and a body weighed down by exhaustion. The avoidant partner's state isn't much easier. They create distance again and again to feel free, yet inside they carry guilt for hurting their partner. They often think, if only I had more space, maybe I could love better. But even with distance, peace doesn't come, because deep down the emptiness of separation catches up with them too. This ongoing conflict attacks self-esteem. The anxious partner begins to see themselves as too needy, while the avoidant starts believing they're cold or a failed lover. Slowly, both partners construct negative stories about themselves, which not only damage the relationship, but spill over into their personal lives as well. And if this cycle continues for years, the consequences grow more dangerous. Stress hormones become chronic in the body, weakening the immune system. Heart rate, blood pressure, even digestion start to suffer. What begins as an emotional problem gradually turns into a physical health issue. On top of that, the constant fights and breakups followed by sweet reconciliations create a strange addiction. The person becomes hooked on this high, and as soon as the high fades, they go back to the same partner, or seek out a similar relationship to feel it again. It's much like an addict saying, "This is the last time," only to repeat the same pattern again. The greatest cost of being stuck here is time. Years slip by, and a person looks back thinking, if only I had found the courage earlier to choose a healthier path. Not just time, but the ability to build new, better relationships also weakens. The longer someone stays in an unhealthy pattern, the harder it becomes to rebuild trust and openness later on. This cycle is a kind of prison, where pain and pleasure are mixed together, and that's exactly what makes it so hard to escape. The truth is, until a person recognizes the true cost, they can't convince themselves that leaving the prison is absolutely necessary. The hardest moment in any story is when we decide that change is necessary. The anxious avoidant cycle is one such story. It keeps spinning us around and bringing us back to the same place again and again. But if we choose, this cycle can end right here. The question is how. The very first step is to recognize your attachment style. Many people don't even know whether they are anxious or avoidant. Once you understand your patterns, for example, do you always seek closeness or do you always pull away, you begin to see where the problem lies. This awareness is half the victory, because when you know where you stand, only then can you take the next step in the right direction. The second step is to set boundaries. Boundaries don't just mean distance, they are healthy guidelines for what is acceptable in a relationship and what is not. If you are anxious, you need to remind your heart that constant calling or messaging is not love, it's pressure. And if you are avoidant, you need to realize that sometimes offering your partner reassurance is not imprisonment, it's a basic need. Boundaries teach both partners how to respect themselves and each other. The third solution is therapy or self-work. A trained therapist holds up the mirror that lets us see our patterns clearly. But if therapy isn't possible, self-work can be just as powerful. Journaling, meditation, or emotional awareness exercises. All these practices gradually help you gain control over your fear. Remember, the cycle only breaks when we recognize our inner fears and learn to move beyond them. But techniques alone are not enough. The real shift lies in mindset. We must understand that a relationship is not meant to complete us, it is meant to empower us. If a bond is constantly making us weaker, then it's time to prioritize our well-being with stronger boundaries. Here's another practical piece of advice: spend more time with people who have a secure attachment. Such people teach you that closeness and freedom can coexist. They give you a healthier model, one you can start applying in your own life. In the end, remember this truth: breaking the cycle is not easy, but it is not impossible either. It is a gradual process, where every small step brings you closer to greater freedom. Love succeeds only when we live not with fear but with trust. Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments, what stage are you at? Have you ever experienced this cycle, and what steps did you take to break free from it? Your story might become a source of hope for someone else.